And a TGIF, everyone, for the first time in 2026. Happy New Year from our family here on the podcast, Scott and I, and to all of you out there. Scott, welcome in. 2026 is going to be a big year, right?
Happy New Year. I mean, Ole Miss won. They didn't even need their head coach. I mean, it was it's always a big time in college football if I'm locked into the games all day long. And that's not a diss to the sport, but just the way it works out. But yeah, watched all the games yesterday. It was a good start to the year. And we're recording this, what is it, Friday, I think? But it's Friday morning, right? And it looks like they're going to race for the first time this year at Santa Anita, just not on the turf. So that should be good as well.
Looking forward to that. We've got stakes races for you around the country each and every week here on the podcast. If you're new to the show, if you're one of those folks watching on the video channels, X, or on First, or X, not on First Bet, but if you're watching on X or if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to like and share this out. Put your comments and your picks in the comment section as well. Help us grow the audience here. Be sure to follow us on that channel as well. And for those of you on our traditional audio channels, here are the races Scott and I are going to handicap over the next half hour or so. We'll start at Gulfstream Park on Saturday, where the Road to the Florida Derby gets underway and the big races towards the Gulfstream Park Oaks. We've got the Ginger Brew for the 3-year-old fillies, the Mucho Macho Man for the 3-year-old colts. Those are races 6 and 10. To Santa Anita we go. The Road to the Santa Anita Oaks gets underway with the Santa Ynez Stakes, race number 8 on the card there for the 3-year-old fillies. At Oaklawn Park, couple stakes races for the 3-year-olds. The Commodore going short, the Smarty Jones going long. The Road to the Arkansas Derby gets underway with the Smarty Jones Stakes on Saturday in Hot Springs. To Aqueduct we go, where a pair of stakes races. This is kind of the theme. The Busanda Stakes for the fillies, the Jerome Stakes for the 3-year-old colts on the Wood Memorial Trail. Those will go as races 3 and 7 on the card at the Big A. And at Turfway Park, the Road to the Jeff Ruby gets underway with the Turfway preview. So you can see a theme here. Lots of newly turned 3-year-olds and 3-year-old fillies in action in stakes company this weekend. We've got a big promo for you on Saturday at Oaklawn Park. 1 million first rewards points are on the line in a hit and split if you can take down the late pick for Saturday at Oaklawn Park. That includes 2 of the stakes races that will handicap. We're going to get you halfway home in that, the Commodore and the Smarty Jones, part of that 1 million point hit and split Saturday at Oaklawn Park. All right, Scott, without further ado, let's just hop right into 2026. Let's go to race number 6 Saturday at Gulfstream Park. The 1 mile Ginger Brew Stakes, $175,000 on the line in this one. And I want to remind players that like to play handicapping tournaments, Beat the Host gets started this weekend on Saturday. It's Pete Aiello, the voice of Gulfstream Park. So you can listen to Pete call the Ginger Brew, and you can take it down Saturday in handicapping contest play. Be sure to check out all that. Scott, who are we going with in the Ginger Brew?
Yeah, not creative in here, Jeremy. I've got some creative picks, and then in some of these races, I think they're going to be rather formful. And I think this is one of them. I'm not exact. Let's see. The morning lines, I did handicap it without the morning line, so I can pull that up shortly. But I like Spirit Doll here, who should be, I would assume, is going to be the favorite. Moved to the turf last time out for Safi Joseph and dominated a field there of stakes foes that day. Actually beat a couple of her rivals in here, and yeah, she's 2-1 on the morning line, so nothing overly creative. But the move, I really like what I saw when you move to a new surface or stretch out, and you come home. We like to refer to the Brisnet late pace ratings; they are good to us. She came in with a 90 late pace, first time turf after just 2 dirt sprints, and it was a pretty impressive effort. Obviously you're not going to win a lot of turf races over the years by 6.5 lengths, but at this stage, early 3-year-olds, late 2-year-olds, sometimes some are just much better than the others. And Spirit Doll looks better than this field to me on the grass.
Seems to run through Safi Joseph, who has a couple, including your pick there, Spirit Doll, or Brian Lynch, who's got a couple, and Lynch is just winning tremendous percentage here, 43% at the meet at Gulfstream since going back to the in the past month or so. He's got Storm's Wake, the one in here, probably a long shot, beating favorite last out. But Sister Troyenne certainly one to watch in here, coming off a big win in the Wait a While Stakes, Scott. She won easily last time out on the synthetic, but she does have a turf win and allowance company at Keeneland. She's rattled off 3 in a row. This daughter of Munnings has no trouble turning. She's got that lemon drop kid on the dam side.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, are you starting to notice that, I always thought of Munnings as a sprinter, and I think the average win distance for Munnings, but I feel like the more I see things of late, Munnings is having a lot more horses go further, it seems to me, successfully. But it's hard to knock a horse that's won 3 in a row. The decline in speed figures a little bit after the effort at Churchill has me a little concerned. That, she's already raced 4 times. I don't know if I can expect her to run at her best here, but obviously a major player in the morning line suggests it.
We move next to race number 10 on the card Saturday at Gulfstream Park. This is part of the Sunset Six, the final 3 races on the card at Gulfstream, final 3 races on the card at Santa Anita. Remember, that wager's back now with both of those tracks in action. Also, the Coast to Coast Pick 5 back in action with Gulfstream and Santa Anita. So a lot of different ways to play the Mucho Macho Man Stakes. Again, race number 10, 175,000 here. No Kentucky Derby points on the line around 1 turn in this particular race, Scott, but certainly there could be some Florida Derby implications in this race. We haven't seen a lot come out of the Mucho Macho Man and actually make the Derby. It's been since simplification a couple of years ago, and only a handful of horses have come out of this race specifically and got onto the Derby. Now, way back in the day, we saw Barbaro run in this race before it was called the Mucho Macho Man. But again, the Mucho Macho Man, a race that kind of gets us going, at least gets our juices going towards the Florida Derby trail. But this is actually a decent field of some potential up-and-comers from barns that would be looking at races like the Florida Derby. This isn't just locals.
Yeah, this is a little bit of a different field, like you said. A lot of times it's kind of the Florida breds, the horses like Roger That Dana, who I'm not knocking by any respect, but kind of coming out of those winter races, doing well in the Florida bred. You mentioned simplification, who a lot of us had questions about getting the distance and actually proved us wrong when it came to that. But, I think this race has some horses that, may not turn out to be much, but I wouldn't be surprised if one of these gets into the starting gate for the Derby. And I think, you got a couple of here that look most promising, and they're the ones that I think can settle and finish. Whether that works over the Gulfstream main track on Saturday remains to be seen. Sometimes can be pretty speed favoring. But I think, Trips Promise is a horse that I like underneath in here, and I think is improving and finishing well in his races. But really, Commandment looks to me like a real Derby prospect. Maybe not bred to get a mile and a quarter, but they spent $500,000. The Dam Sippick and Harbor won the Spinaway, I think, for Gary Contessa at a big price a few years back. So some good pedigree here. And this colt, looks like he's learning, good learning experience on the debut against one of the better Keeneland maiden special weight fields we saw, if not the best. And then last time out, improved, showed better speed out of the gate, showed him, professionalism, and finished, pretty well after being up pretty close to the pace. So I think Commandment actually looks like the best horse in the field. Whether he's a good bet tomorrow, we'll see. But he also looks like a potential horse that could move forward off this.
Irad Ortiz will ride there for Brad Cox, and of course a horse who's got a good brisk late pace figure and 6 furlong race, getting a 96. The last time didn't finish up as strong, but won so easily, maybe throttled down a bit in that one. Trips Promise, the other late running horse in here by Promises Fulfilled. This is a horse who Dale Romans has had some success at Gulfstream Park over the years with Promises Fulfilled. His sire was Shackleford, so there's a lot of Dale Gulfstream 3-year-old history down the line with this 3rd generation runner, Trips Promise, who should get a nice pace setup in here. I've got 5 to 6 horses who want to try to make the front in this particular spot in a 1-turn mile. Like you mentioned, Gulfstream Park, typically you don't want to be closing in a 1-turn race like this, or even the 2-turn races at Gulfstream so much on the main. But I think this situation kind of calls for it. And the 2 classiest horses in the race, I think the 2 horses coming from Kentucky, get the right setup. So if you give the potential best horses the best race shape as well, they usually don't get back that kind of advantage. I think this runs through Commandment and Trips Promise. Those are my 2 in there for the Mucho Macho Man Stakes. Race of the week on the Express Bet email newsletter. Be sure to sign up for that. First Bet or Express Bet. You'll get my email analysis. I'm going to take Trips Promise because I think we get a better price there, being the better value of the 2. But Commandment probably goes favorite under Irad, and deservedly so for trainer Brad Cox. We switch gears now from Gulfstream to Santa Anita. Again, we want to remind you that the Santa Anita racing has been under a deluge this week. Heavy rains throughout. Really, there was some talk about, they didn't even let the bands on the field down the street at the Rose Bowl yesterday. So certainly the heavy rains in Southern California, something to keep in mind as we handicap towards Saturday's Santa Ynez Stakes. So this will be on the main track, the Santa Ynez. 3-year-old fillies in here, a field of 5. There are 3 Bob Baffert stablemates. We see this kind of setup. It's almost like Chad on the turf on the East Coast, Bob on the dirt in these graded stakes, especially with the younger horses. Just a loaded hand here to play. He's got Explorer, Hamika, and also Toaster, a first-time debut winner at Los Al. But certainly it's about Explorer and Hamika of the 2 Bafferts who have the most experience in here. Scott, are you going to try to get, brassy and go against the 3 Bafferts in here? Or are we going to just try to, kind of guess through and pick through one of those 3?
Well, a man inspired me a couple of months ago with his pick of Intrepido taking on a cavalry of Mr. Baffert horses. It can be done.
It can be done.
I am going to do it in this spot. I think Reverie makes a lot of sense in here. You've got Explorer, who obviously, if she, moves forward or runs back to her, most recent efforts, and even her debut where she sprinted, she's going to win, but she hasn't moved forward off of her debut, really. And now she's cutting back, and I just wonder if she's going to be sharp enough in the best form of her. I don't know. It's just a weird spot on the cutback here, drawing inside the other Bafferts. I just don't love it at what the price she's going to be. She's going to be odds on. Hamika's a filly that I've been able to beat successfully a couple of times, and the other 2, I'm not. The Toaster, that would be disappointing if I beat the other 2, and Toaster beat me, admittedly, from a gambling perspective, but. Rivera keeps getting better, and they bet this horse throughout. She beat Hamika last time out, turned the tables on her, and just stalked 3 wide and beat her on the square. So I think she's the best filly without question outside of Explorer, and that's kind of why I'm going to pick her in here, because I would never bet Explorer at the price she's going to be for the reasons I mentioned.
One of the reasons she's going to be a short price is her first and only appearance at Santa Anita was a dominant win in the Oakleaf.
Second, making steady headway, La Vie Lumiere in third, and Explorer is the new leader at the top of the stretch. Heaven's Bolt has been eased. Explorer's in front, coming to the furlong pole, opens up a 3-length lead. La Vie Lumiere and La Wally are head and head, second and third, but it's all Explorer by 5 past the 16th pole, and Explorer devastates the competition with an easy stroll in the Oakleaf, presented by Oak Tree Racing Association. La Wally was a good second. La Vie Lumiere finished third.
That's Explorer, winner of the Oakleaf. We'll see what she does in the Santa Ynez. Scott's going against those 3 Bafferts. He's going to try to pull it off with Rivera in this one. Let's go to Oaklawn Park next up. They've got a pair of stakes races on Saturday's card in this portion of the program. They also have one earlier on the program for the 3-year-old sprinters. But we're going to look at the Commodore Stakes for older sprinters in race number 9. And then in race number 10, it'll be the Smarty Jones kickoff leg to the Arkansas Derby Series. Again, this is part of that 1 million point hit and split with First Bet and Express Bet. Play the late 4 with First Bet and Express Bet. Take down not only your pair of mutual winnings, but share in 1 million first rewards points. Now, those rewards points can be redeemed for wagering credits, for handicapping products, for swag in the pro shop. So a good reason to build up your first rewards points, because they can actually pay and play with them down the line. So be sure to take advantage of that. Sign up for all the promos when you're in your account, when you want to play those. Late pick 4 Saturday at Oaklawn. I've got a full analysis of this written up in the blog section at First Bet and Express Bet. Scott, let's get your thoughts on the Commodore overnight stakes. 6 furlongs in here. These are for horses who have not won a stakes race in open company. So you either get kind of a lounge class risers in here, maybe some horses who won against state breds, or some horses who have been nibbling in stakes company, but just haven't gotten over the top yet. Which one will?
Well, I just don't. Again, we're looking at a case where Echo again and Concrete Glory should be the 2 heavy favorites in here. Safi Joseph's Concrete Glory, certainly deserving favorite, has won 17 races. But I just don't know if he's going to have it all that easy. He's never raced at Oaklawn. I just think there's questions to answer. Mm-hmm. And Echo, again, is far from a win machine. He's lost plenty of races that it looked like would set up well for him. So I was looking for horses that I thought could move forward in here, and I came up with number 6, Bourbon Bash, who's in the Steve Asmussen barn and must have headed there after the passing of D. Wayne Lucas, who had trained this horse through his first 23 races. He ran some big races, just kind of lacked the will to win. He's been on the sidelines since, but he comes in off a long series of drills, including several here at Oaklawn. A good gate drill, 2 back for Steve, who doesn't, want anything out of his horses in the maintenance work before the race. I think he's coming into the race well. No disrespect to the coach, but Steve winning a lot more races with these types of horses at this point of his career.
Yep.
He can move forward here, and he's 12-1 on the line. We'll see what price we get.
Concrete Glory, Bourbon Bash, 2 that I consider, and I also used the 2 in here, Second ID. This is a horse who last time out ran in the Ring the Bell Stakes, and you say, well, what's that? That's not much of a race. That was Roll On Big Joe, Banishing, Tejano Twist, Skelly. That was every good sprinter on the grounds at Oaklawn. That could have been the Whitmore Stakes. That could have been the Count Fleet, one of the graded stakes later in the meet, but it was a December race, much harder than it should have been, and I thought Second ID for stepping up in class against those kind of horses actually ran fairly admirable in there. Nobody in this race, Concrete Glory included, is as good as the horses that we saw in that race last time. So I'm going to take a chance with Second ID. And what I've noticed handicapping these races at Oaklawn early in the meet, horses running back fairly quickly, second time at the meet, are doing really well. We see a lot of this where the horses back on 3, 4, 5 weeks. The meet just started like second week of December, and already we're starting to see horses run back and run really well on 2-3 weeks rest. I'm going to take that shot with Second ID, who last ran on December the 13th, again in the Ring the Bell Stakes. I've got it 2-6-5, the way I'm lining up in the Commodore Stakes, race number 9 at Oaklawn. Makes me think of the old Commodore 64, Scott. Remember that computer back in the day?
I did, and we were talking about it before, but I kind of thought it was more the Atari days. I'm going to have to go back and figure out where it fit in. You're a couple years older than me, so I think you got more out of the Commodore 64, but I have memories of it. I didn't have it, and I wanted it, but did they name this race after it? Or?
No, I have no idea what the Commodore is named after. Usually I have that research done.
I know.
I'd have to go back on my old Commodore 64, which was a home computer, if you're not remembering that. One of the very first home computers, very cheap model or whatever, but you could write very simple programs and prompts for it. And actually found the horse racing handicapping program in a book, probably Walden Books or some other place like that, to kind of give you a sense of the time and the era back in between running blockbuster videos, and wrote a program to handicap the horses. I inputted my own data out of the racing form, starts, wins, speed ratings, and track variants, because there were no buyer speed figures back then published, the average earnings per start, things like that. And actually, that was in my early handicapping as a teenager. That was one of the things I did, was write a computer program for that. Funny thing is I got completely out of any computer programming after that, and today I kind of hold my nose at computer programming and handicapping. It works for some people, but it's something that's passed me by long ago, and I'm more doing it by feel in the last 30 years. But the Commodore 64, if any of you out there remember that system, tell us about it in the comments. Did you use it for any handicapping back in the day, and did you have any luck with it? I'd love to find out about that. Let's go to the Smarty Jones Stakes. It's race number 10 on the card Saturday at Oaklawn Park. This is part of that late pick 4 hit and split that we talked about at Oaklawn. $250,000 in the Smarty Jones. There are Kentucky Derby qualifying points on the line for this one. 10 to the winner, 5 for second, 3, 2, 1 down the line for the top 4 or 5 finishers in here. $250,000 race as we get set at Oaklawn. This is the only listed stakes at Oaklawn in their Arkansas Derby series. They'll follow up with the Southwest, with the Rebel, and then, of course, the Arkansas Derby, all with big purse money for those. This is a pretty good field for the kind of race that it is, Scott. We haven't seen the Smarty Jones produce a lot on the Kentucky Derby trail. We did see last year where Lonnie Briley's horse ended up getting all the way to the Kentucky Derby out of this spot. A couple years ago, Brad Cox had the Cost of Freedom, I believe, who ended up third in the Derby.
Catching Freedom and Coal Battle, yeah.
Or Catching Freedom, yeah, and Coal Battle, right. So you helped me out with the names there. I remembered the trainers and not the names.
But I wouldn't have got them without you giving me the trainers if it makes you feel better, so. You're the one
there. You go.
On the fly. Yeah.
We'll fill out each other's sentences. Universe has got certainly stakes caliber and quality in there. If you look at the running lines for Universe in this race, coming out of the Champaign, the Street Sense, and the Kentucky Jockey Club, he's been beaten when running second or third in those races by Napoleon Solo, Incredible, and Further Ado. There's probably not going to be many top 20 Derby lists that come out in the next, week or so, including mine later today on Countdown to the Crown, that do not include Napoleon Solo, Incredible, and Further Ado. All 3 of them are going to be horses that people are looking at towards 2026. So can't argue with the running lines for Universe.
No, and you also can't argue with the fact that he's versatile. He He has tactical speed. He's not going to be like on the lead type most likely in these types of races, but the jock can put him where he wants to, generally speaking, and that's a beneficial as well. You know, he wins his debut at Saratoga in a restricted auction spot, but did so, or no, that wasn't a restricted auction spot. Just it wasn't as strongest of field, but did it very professionally. And like you mentioned, not only was the competition strong in these other races, but not necessarily perfect setups. Napoleon Solo just dominated him on the front end. I mean, this was the horse that, you know, other than him and Talking were the only ones that were really making up ground. And then that race completely fell apart late, and he was the one that kind of kept it together, very connected and incredible. We're coming from well out of it. I think he's a very talented horse, or, you know, very classy horse, like you said, with the running lines. I'm wondering if there's going to be one better than him again in this spot.
Yeah, and that's kind of like the way when you look at Universe, you say, look, you got to consider him like a Derby contender. McPeak's going to give him every chance to get there. He's got some decent pedigree. You know, he's not a complete blue blood or anything, but he's got enough pedigree. He's got enough two-turn experience that's solid right now to not worry about him up to 1 1/8. And, you know, he's run against good horses and run well. He feels like a safe horse right now to say this is a Derby kind of horse. But, yeah, you want to beat him in this particular spot. And I did the same thing. So, while like none of the other horses in this race may be on anybody's top 10 or top 20 Derby list, like you might see with Universe, I think somebody beats him in this spot. We kind of have the same feeling here.
Well, yeah, I mean, you've got Rancho Santa Fe, who's the morning line favorite. I don't know if he'll go off favorite over Universe, but he looks like he wants to run all day. And, you know, I mean, he's gone further in both of his races. He's been far outside in both of them. Now, Ellis that day the outside was a big time place to be. So don't overstate the ground loss in there. But he looks like kind of the one that I think will just continue to run. I mean, I'm already looking at him as a potential Belmont horse, the way he runs. And then you got Boca Beach Club, to me, who is asking for a lot here, you know, but there's reasons to believe this horse has some ability. Strong gallop out last time out. Yeah. And then you got the other McPeak, who I sided with because of one. I mean, I like the last race. I think he's moving forward. But most importantly, I mean, it's very intriguing to me that Brian Hernandez Jr., who I haven't spoken to Brian. I know Brian, I haven't spoken to him about this, but I'm 99% sure he gets his choice in this spot, if not higher. And it's interesting that he's choosing this horse that was coming out of restricted auction spots and a starter spot from there instead of the one that looks like fitting on class line. So that's, maybe I'm reading too much, but that's why I'm a little leery on Universe in this spot. Like why Brian wouldn't come back and ride that horse is a little surprising to me. I don't know what your thoughts.
Yeah, no, it's almost like I expected him to scratch because of that, you know, like they wanted to take a look, but then Rosario wouldn't get named on the horse who's not going to stay in the field. He would have tried to pick up a mount somewhere in the lineup. So, it's kind of really interesting. The rider assignments in here, not riding a horse that you just rode the second in the Grade 2 Kentucky Jockey Club. You love to hug the rail and rally. I mean, it looks like Universe would be a perfect fit with Brian Hernandez and Kenny McPeak, all the success they've had. I think Mystic Dan actually won this race a couple of years ago and went on to win the Derby. So, like, why he ends up on Sleeping on Freedom is kind of an interesting move here. I don't know. I don't know if it's a great sign or something else is amuck, but certainly Sleeping on Freedom has to overcome an outside post position in here, but has won 2 straight and on numbers stacks up fairly decent with some of the others in this spot. You had mentioned number 3, Boca Beach Club. That's where I wound up in this race. I really like this horse. I loved his first start at Hawthorne to the point that I thought he was a lock in the Advent Stakes. I thought he was going to really run huge in there, and he just missed the start. He ended up last early in that race, spent the whole race in makeup mode, but it wasn't one of those where you make a move, stop, and then fade. The Peter Miller wire-to-wire winner in that race, who comes back in the sprint race earlier on the card Saturday, he just, got loose and went on with it. But this horse ran all the way through the wire and beyond the wire with a good gallop out, as you mentioned. Boca Beach Club, one of the reasons I like him is because he's by Omaha Beach out of a mine shaft mare. The sprints really aren't the spots where you thought he would be good, and he's been really good sprinting. So now we tap back to our old buddy Jeff Siegel here and his favorite handicapping angle, 2 sprints to a route. I mean, this form cycle to start the career like that is exactly what we're looking at. Boca Beach Club, now they go from Ricardo Santana, good rider, to elite rider in Luis Saez. It kind of feels like go time. They get a good post position draw here in the 3-hole. I don't think Universe is going to show speed from the rail. I don't know about Baytown Dreamer really having speed on the dirt, a horse coming off of turf races. It could be a really good trip grip, saving ground into the first turn for Boca Beach Club stretching out. So that's where I'm going. I've got this one with Boca Beach Club winning. We're both going to try to beat Universe in here. We're both going to try to beat Rancho Santa Fe. If you can beat McPeak and Cox, I think we'll get good prices on either one of our plays.
Yeah, no, that's the approach I'll have. I mean, against McPeak. Oscar's Hope is who I think will end up being on the lead here likely. But the one concern that could easily be changed, there's two concerns I have with Boca Beach Club, because I think you could argue he has the most upside for all the reasons you mentioned. One, he's missed the break a little bit in both of his races. I'm worried if he misses it, Louis going to rush him up a little. And then going that point, going 5 and 5.5 to this 2 turn after a slow break rush up would be a lot to ask. But I totally see it. And if he's 4-1 or higher and doesn't get steamed, then I think he's a good gamble, because I think he has that much. I think the upside is there for him to win this race going away if he, puts it all together.
Second time running at the meet, I'd mentioned already that I'm seeing this, consistently do well with me. The other thing I liked about Boca Beach Club, he ran December 12th. He's back on the workout tab 10 days later, not 2 weeks later, 10 days later. That's kind of kicking down the barn, I think, and threw a bullet 59 and change. Hopefully he can get out of the gate. That's the whole thing. If Saez gets him out of the gate and he starts running, I think he's going to be a factor in there. He doesn't have to go to the lead. He just needs to get out of there cleanly, maintain position into that first turn, and not be playing in makeup mode throughout. So that's my pick in the Smarty Jones, race number 10. Scott is going Sleeping on Freedom in the 10th, the Smarty Jones. Let's switch up now and head to Aqueduct, the Big A. A couple stakes races on the Saturday card in New York. The Jerome Stakes in the Busanda, races 3 and 7. Of course, Jerome Park was a racetrack in New York way back in the heyday, 100 years ago. The Jerome Stakes, I believe, started there and headed to Aqueduct for the last many, many years. But for much of the history of the Jerome Stakes, this was a race after the Triple Crown. This was a later 3-year-old year. It's only been in the last decade and a half that it's been a 3-year-old race on the trail. It has not produced much in terms of Kentucky Derby starters. I think 2 horses have come out of this race to make the field. Firenze Fire was one of those, another miler type. This is probably going to produce a horse for the Gotham, but will it produce a horse for the Wood Memorial, 2 turns at 1 1/8 or for the Kentucky Derby at 1 1/4? That's what we'll have to find out. A field of 5 entered the Jerome. We expect the scratch of number 5, Mylata. He ran on Tuesday at Parks, and all he did was win by 19 lengths in a stakes race there at Parks at Open Company, but it was just a field of 3. I don't think Butch Reed is planning on running this horse back on 5 days, but we've seen crazier. It was a 7/8 race where he really never had to take a breath. He was just dominant there at 1 to 9 odds. Could they run Mylata back? Perhaps, but I think against My World for Brad Cox and Brittany Russell's Baffert transfer Balboa, that would be asking an awful lot. It would seem like this race runs through those 2.
Yeah, I was going to pick Mylata, so I was making the assumption that he's coming out. It was going to be a big weekend here in Philly between the Smarty Jones and Oaklawn, and Mylata winning the feature in Aqueduct. For those who don't know, Jordan Mylata, a left tackle for the Eagles. So
and a great singer.
That's right. Actually, I know that. I'm going to go on record saying that the Jerome will continue to not be a productive race on the road to the Kentucky Derby this year. 4-horse field likely. And I scratched into with no excitement. We're going to take a look at My World's recent win in the Nashua, and you could be the judge, I suppose. I wasn't overly impressed. Kind of a workman-like win with a really good trip. Yeah. And I don't know, this horse is interesting pedigree, JP. The Dam Quebec, some of you may remember out there, out Southern California racing fans. This was a turf horse in the Richard Baltus barn for a little while there. So breeding to essential quality, interesting pedigree. Been on the dirt so far. We'll see if this horse tries the turf. He's run good in his races. I just, that debut, very forgivable, being down on the inside after a slow break against a decent field, if not better than decent. But, I think he's going to win this race, and I think he's going to be a play against moving forward. Maybe I'm wrong.
My World for Brad Cox coming off that win November 1st in the Nashua. Here's a look.
Reach the top of the stretch, and tough guy Tony's still there. My World ready to challenge the gray towards the outside, and My World has taken the lead. My World Probably Dreaming is under the shove here, center of the racetrack, and trying to run this leader down. My World Probably Dreaming down to these 2. It's My World gutting it out towards the inside and stretching the margin once again. My World will win it. My World wins the National, Probably Dreaming. Then day one starter in 1 minute 37.
Like when they came to him that he had something. He had that little re-break action, if you will. And for Brad Cox, this looked like a decent 3-year-old prospect. Like you said, that essential quality on top. You've got some brilliance there, obviously. Essential quality, a top class horse, a miler or so, and really, a world record setter at a mile. And then you look at the bottom of the pedigree and Into Mischief, and that's the hot sire in the country, and the Quebec that you mentioned gets that turfy dam side, and that's a lot of times brilliance on top and a turfy dam side. That's kind of what I'm looking for in my Derby horses. That seems to be a very successful formula. And then you mix in, you got the Tap It in there, you got the Into Mischief. There's a lot of successful pedigree to that. I don't know how far he's going to run, but My World should get the job done in this spot.
Maybe I'm being hard. You make a good point. The late, great John Asher as well subscribed to the Churchill Downs turf on the dam side factor being a positive, and I think that was a lot of feel from John more than anything else, not diving deep, and he had a good feel for that place, obviously. So I think maybe I'm understating him. I just wasn't wowed. I know that looked good, him re-breaking, but it wasn't very, a high-quality group of horses in there.
Yeah, it's like 25-4 to last quarter. So it wasn't like they flew on the back end of the National, right? I mean,
exactly,
yeah, got to keep that in mind for sure. That's a Jerome Stakes at Aqueduct, race number 3. To the 7th we go on Saturday at the Big A. It's the Busanda Stakes, named for the 2-time winner of the Saratoga Cup back in the 50s. A filly who could take on the boys with success. The Busanda Stakes is 3-year-old fillies en route to the Comely Stakes and races like that on the trail to the Kentucky Oaks on the New York side of things. We've got a field of 6 in here, so they didn't draw big in the Jerome. They didn't draw big in the Busanda. Who do you like in this one?
Well, I think it's an interesting race, even, for one reason. I think there's a little bit of speed in here. I think the pace is going to be honest. I think, Schilling, who has a couple of wins in here, likely to take some support, and then the outside horses. But I think Britain, who's a Chad Brown runner that I'm not sure exactly what price this filly will end up going off, but she was beaten on the square on debut by Schilling and then won last out. But I think she's moving forward. I like what I saw last race, comparatively speaking to her debut. It was a very noticeable professional move forward. The horse that she beat in that race came back to win their next start. So I just think Britain might be sitting on a race, and maybe you'll get a Chad Brown filly that cost a little over $1 million at better than a very short price. Maybe I'm wrong there. That's another race I did not use the morning line. I'm pulling it up as I'm talking just to see if I'm crazy. 3-1. Yeah, 3-1. Schilling 2-1. Dazzling Dame 5-2. So if I can get third choice on Britain, something like that, I think she's a filly that's going to move forward.
One of the keys to this race could be the one Midnight Ginny, because the 3 Schilling, we expect the one to show speed. Dazzling Dame, the other morning line choice, also to show speed in here. If you get a third in a 1-turn mile, now you've got yourself a little bit of a heated pace. And if the one Midnight Ginny made the lead sprinting at Monmouth back in September, hasn't run since, if this one for Jesus Sanchez can get it out of the gate under Savacci and get up into that mix, now you got something where your horse Britain could get a beautiful trip in here.
No, that's exactly it. Midnight Ginny, maybe she's just going to come in here and not be up to the task of breaking from the rail. But she looks like she's here to go to the lead to me. And, and Schilling has really shown only one way to go. You don't see a ton of McPeak horses that are speed horses early on in their career because he likes to try to relax them. So to me, this filly needs the lead or, needs to be forward. And then you got Dazzling Dame. So hopefully we'll get a little bit of a collapse. Like you said, Britain should be able to swoop right in along that inside trip, which is the coveted one in these 1-turn mile races in New York.
If Scott's right, he'll be waving the Union Jack on Saturday for Britain in the Busanda Stakes. Let's wrap things up. Our final handicapping destination of the weekend is Florence, y'all. We'll go to Kentucky's Turfway Park for the Turfway preview, race number 6 on the program Saturday night. And we've got a field of 7 in here. Not a lot of huge fields throughout the course of these 3-year-old races starting off of the season here. A field of 7 at Turfway, a bit of a surprise. We expect big fields at Turfway, but we got $125,000 sprint stakes here at 6.5 furlongs. couple big barns still hanging around in here for the Turfway season, but not the big heavyweights that we sometimes see with Brad Cox and Pletcher and some of that a little bit later in the stake season at Turfway Park. A little bit more local feel here, but you do have Ben Colebrook. Nolan Ramsey's got one in here. Jorge Duarte bringing one in from, been stabled here at Turfway for a little while, but in from the New Jersey Colts Neck stable farm there. So we got a couple shippers. We got a couple locals, obviously. Who do you like here in the Turfway preview?
You know, you got a lot of horses to me that look okay, including Shipmate, who I expect to take a lot of money because has a win over an all-weather surface already. And to be honest, the one at Gulfstream, I tend, based on the non-data, but just anecdotally for me, I feel like that translates best to Turfway, much better than Woodbine and Presque Isle, at least. But I think he's just kind of okay.
Yeah.
And if Hometown Bound takes to the Turfway Park like he has in the morning, I mean, that worked two back. It's a different game that, when you get asked in a race to kick on, that's what he'll have to show on this surface. But
yeah,
he went fast and he ran really well on debut. It looks like, this was, like you said, he's been here for a little bit. It's not as if they just, it looks like this was the plan,
right.
I'm not big into pedigree for the all weather. So I don't have, that's not something I dive into. So maybe, youngest, the factor I do think is an all weather pedigree, but regardless, if Jorge Duarte thought that off of a huge effort on debut, this was the spot, I'm going to kind of take his word. I mean, he wins enough races.
No question about it. Hometown Bound, maybe fastest in this race. It's all about the surface. But like you said, it looks like this was the plan. And, when you have these 3-year-olds and you can run in restricted races, just the 3-year-olds, everybody's got a derby is one of my favorite sayings. It's not all the first Saturday in May, right? I mean, but when you find your spot, if you have a horse like this and you say there's a 6.5 furlong race early in the year for 125 grand that I can get black type with, you go find that race, right? And so they head from Maryland and in the New Jersey base. They ran in Maryland to break the maiden. Now they come here to Turfway and they get there early to train and get, some acclimation of the surface. I think it's a pretty heady move. Trendsetter, the 4, just to the inside, has no early speed. Will be trying to come on late for Ben Colebrook. Does come out of a good race in the Indian Summer. Yes, 5th beat and 3 in there in an 8-horse field. Schwarzenegger, Obliteration, 2 really nice horses, 1-2 in that particular spot. So Trendsetter coming out of a pretty good race. You would expect if they come back in terms of the pace, then this horse could be a factor. But boy, you look at the pace in this race, there's not any. I mean, Shipmate's gone to the front long and once going short for Ramsey. The 2's got to go to the front and Hometown Bound goes to the front. The 2-5 kind of just control this race from the front end, you would think.
I think so. I think Hometown Bound looks like he's fast. I just think if things go the way they're supposed to for this horse, he's going to break on top, go to the lead and never look back. It's unlikely to be that easy, but sometimes it happens that way. He's not going to be a big price, so I don't mean to talk it up like that. But I mean, the fact that they also spent $350. This youngest daughter, I remember the dam, I think was a G. Watts Humphrey horse, but more of some sort. But this horse looks like the horse, because just remember, if this horse doesn't run well, I have a strong inkling that this is going to come back. Unless Trend Center, perhaps, but I don't think you're going to want these horses moving forward into the prep races that are at further distances.
Long way from 6.5 in the Turfway preview to the 9 furlong Jeff Ruby. It'll be coming up later in the meet, but you got to start somewhere. Let's see, and it's Derby Day for somebody, probably on Saturday night at Turfway in the 6.5 furlong Turfway preview. Okay, that wraps up our handicapping for the weekend. Quick reminder, $1 million point hit and split on the late pick for Saturday at Oaklawn, including 2 of those stakes races, the Commodore and the Smarty Jones. Also want to remind you, Beat the Host is back, our weekly handicapping contest at Express Bet. Remember, only our handicapping contests are played at Express Bet, not online at First Bet. So expressbet.com for the handicapping contest this weekend. Beat the Host is a situation where we take the last 5 races on the card at Gulfstream, first 5 races on the card at Santa Anita. Your job is to play $5 win bets in those races. If you beat the host win total throughout the course of the tournament, for that day. You will qualify for the Beat the Host Championship round, where you're going to play for some big money. $2,000 up for grabs, though, in weekly prizes each week if you have the highest totals amongst the players playing in there. So you want to get in the top 5. The top 5 each week are going to qualify for the Beat the Host Championship round. So handicap the last 5 at Gulfstream, the first 5 at Santa Anita for Saturday. Be sure to get involved. There is no entry fee for the contest. Your entry is your pari-mutuel wagers. Those $5 $5 win bets are how you enter and play the contest. So sign up for Beat the Host. Registration is available now. Each week it's a different host. Pete Aiello gets started this week. We've got Scott coming along somewhere. I think you might be on Pegasus Day. You're a part of the Beat the Host this year for the first time.
Looking forward to it. Bring it on, listeners. Nah, I'm just kidding. Don't just try to know my picks listening to me and use them and then pick one spot where you're going to beat me. It's a little unfair advantage, but yeah, it'll be fun. Pete, I know was joking around that he's not. I think he's a pretty good handicapper, even though he was joking around earlier that he was not.
He struggled in this contest last year. I think he did take the goose egg, and so therefore he's got. I'll be honest. I've been leadoff leg in this contest in past years, and also had that goose egg in leg 1. And you get some frowns from management when that happens, because they're like, "Yeah, Plunk, you allowed 714 players through to the Beat the Host Championship round now, so you gotta throw up some totals there somewhere along the line and get some winners." So we hope Pete Aiello starts off well, but we hope you do better for our listeners out there this weekend. Be sure to play. One note about the format for the Beat the Host. In the event one of the tracks scratches, all the races will come from the other track. So if there's a cancellation, for instance, due to weather, what we've seen this week at Santa Anita, if there's no Santa Anita racing this Saturday, all 10 races will come from Gulfstream in the handicapping contest. So if you're preparing and playing ahead, you'll know that now, to give you a little bit of a leg up for listening to the show here today on some of the other competition. But we hope everybody's racing this Saturday. We hope everybody's cashing tickets as well. On behalf of Scott and everybody with First Bet and Express Bet, I'm Jeremy Funk. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll talk to you next week.